Hello, my name is Marcus Ruiz Evans, president of Yes California CalExit. This video is for someone who is being harassed in the media and potentially by law enforcement. My ability to send voice messages over the phone was suddenly turned off today. For some reason, rather than fight it, I just assumed I was banned by security forces in America. This video is for you. You know who you are. Recently, a reporter that I worked with asked me to make a special message to you. Because, as we say here in the Valley, looks like you're in a tough spot, barely right now. I was accused of being a spy for the Russian government throughout 2017 and into 2018 and 2019. It was the worst time of my life. I was questioned by everyone, sent death threats, hate mail, had my family repeat talking points they saw on the news, and was generally thought to be a bad person by everyone I knew and everyone I loved, and had everything turn on me. Very few people actually stood with me during that time. Why? Because the media made it seem as though I had done all sorts of horrible things when there was no actual evidence of that. I predict that you're going to be in a similar situation, and I'd like to tell you some of the life lessons I've learned that got me through it. Here are tips for you. These tips got me through. I'm assuming that you did nothing illegal and have no intent to commit a crime or to appear as though you tolerate criminal behavior or in any way support violence of any kind to achieve politics or anything at all. I'm going to make that assumption about you. If I'm wrong, turn yourself into legal authorities right now. But if you did nothing wrong and you're worried about being dealt in a fair and transparent manner, then I'm here to give you a couple lessons. The first is you have to get your mind in the right frame to deal with this. It's probably going to take you about 3 to 6 months. The reason is that what you're involved in is very hot and controversial at this moment. But Americans do not have a ability to focus on any particular issue. And the United States of America is falling apart. Something worse and horrible is going to happen in the next month or two, and people will forget about right now. But it will take a few months because of the magnitude of the controversy right now. But eventually, something big and shiny will come, and everyone will focus on that, and no one will care about you and this issue. It will come. You don't know when it's going to come, but eventually it will be here. The issue is for you to hold on psychologically and emotionally until that time. To get yourself in the right mind frame to survive this time, there's 3 truths that you have to recognize. First, you don't live in a free country that's dedicated to freedom and righteousness and truthfulness, where government agencies always do the right thing and they're committed to the law as you understand it. Get that idea out of your head. Secondly, people will not come to their sense, and they will not say that you're an okay person, even if you present direct, truthful information to them. So you may have facts, they may exonerate you, but when you go to the public, they're not going to care, and that includes your grandma and your brother. What they're going to do is say, well, the news said, and that's going to be it. And any facts that you have, even when you're telling the truth, and even when it's the relevant information, and even when it's from a correct person or agency to say that, they don't care. The media didn't say you're cleared, so you're not cleared. End of story. You live in a country where people cannot think for themselves and accept whatever they're told. And you live in a country where government agencies are bought and paid for by people with money, or they too have their brain controlled by some sort of narrative they've already bought into. Additionally, you don't live in a land where the news is always interested in the truth and going to do the right thing to make sure the truth gets out. They don't care. Now, there are good reporters who would never sell out and always want to make sure the facts are correct. And there are great government agencies and great government officials who would never violate the law. I've met them. I've met those reporters. I've met those government agents. But don't count on it. That's few and far between. And 80% of who you're going to meet is people saying, I'm just like them. Trust me. And they're not. When you're ready to accept these realities, then I can give you more tips to build onto and on top of this situational awareness of your environment that you're in right now. But if you reject this, you're not going to appreciate the info I'm sharing with you, and you won't be able to translate it correctly to save your ass. So stop fighting what I'm telling you, recognize that those truths, and then you'll be able to take the tips that I'm giving you and build on top of it. I've been through this. There are good reporters and there are good government officials who are dedicated and are good people, and they will stand up for what's right. Don't count on them. Assume you live in a country where every news source is bought and paid for, and everyone has an agenda, and every reporter is part of that agenda or works for the government, and every government agency or official you meet is also part of an agenda or doesn't care about you and will technically lie to you because they technically can, because they think you're the bad guy, because someone already convinced them of that, and they're really just going through the motions to get you caught up. Assume you live in an America where the government doesn't care about truth, and the system doesn't always make sure the truth rises to the top, even when boiled. Assume that no one that you know is there for you and will stand up for you and will believe you. I know it sounds bad, but when you start there, you're starting from a position of understanding where you're at, and you can build on that. The first rule to surviving in activism is don't tell lies about yourself in your own head. Don't lie to yourself, and don't give yourself the wrong situational reality. You have to understand where things are at so that you can react correctly to them. If you're telling yourself fantasies and everything's going to be all right and everyone loves me and the truth comes out, you're going to make mistakes because you're making assumptions that aren't true. And so the reality that you're basing your responses on is already fictionally incorrect. You have to have a solid, stable foundation to plant your counter strategy on. And if you build this foundation on lies, suddenly you have nothing supporting you. You will make mistakes, and it will be easier to take you down. Don't lie to yourself. Be honest about the situation. It's scary, but the more you do that, the better able you are to handle this. Assume everyone is a spy. Act like you are always being recorded. Assume the government will take you down and not take time to see if you're innocent, and have no problem suggesting that you're the bad guy. Assume that after you're cleared, no one's going to care either. And make all of your information public and don't wait for anybody. If you do this, they can't really get to you. Those are my 4 rules. Assume you're always being recorded. Assume everyone's a spy. Assume the government doesn't care, won't do their job, isn't trustworthy, and make all of your information public. Assume you're always being recorded, and everything you say and do, everyone's going to see. If you do that, they have nothing on you. They can't get anything on you. And also, if you're working really hard to share all the information you have, it kind of says there's nothing there. A lot of government and a lot of media will not spend time on you when they've come to the conclusion that you aren't the bad guy and there isn't anything to get you on. They'll move on to another story or another client. So you want to get them to the point where they realize nothing here. The way that you do that is don't hide anything, get everything out, be overwhelmingly obvious about what you're saying and doing and all the information. Don't wait, post it, and assume you're always being recorded and that you're going to be asked to account for everything you're saying. If you do that, there's not a whole lot they can get you on. You don't have secret evidence. You are saying I'm willing to speak on any issue. You are sharing all. So kind of hard to get you, kind of hard to paint you as a shady person, kind of hard to go, what's he hiding? Kind of hard to encourage people to come and trick you and get you to say something when you're just blabbering all the time. Like they have tons of information on you and none of it really adds up to you're a bad guy. If you do this, it's good. Have people you trust and ask them for feedback on what they're seeing. That's the 5th tip. Have a couple people that you trust and constantly talk to them. Do not give them your opinion, ever. Ask their opinion. Be quiet and listen. What you're doing is you're making sure that your assumptions of the reality are accurate. So I usually have about 15 people that I call and I go, I'm seeing this. What do you think? And I'll even say, I'm probably way wrong, right? Encouraging them to disagree. I want them to disagree. I want them to say, no, actually, it's like this. That makes sure that I have the proper understanding of the situation going forward. So always check. Do not assume that a statement that you made that you think's the best one ever worked. Do not assume that the video that you posted that you thought was going to clear your name is believable. Ask people and encourage them to be honest. Do not encourage them to be yes people. Encourage them to be critical and mean. And if you do that, then you know what the honest response is. You can always tell how what you're saying and doing is going to be reacted to because people know to give you their honest opinion and you're asking all the time. That's the other tip. Share your data publicly. If you did nothing wrong, put it all out there. Don't wait for government reporters to say or suggest that you're hiding something or you have something. Put it all out there. Then at least they have to deal with the story as it is. If you leave it up to the media, if you leave it up to government, they will make conclusions for you and suggestions for you. That's horrible. The only thing you have going for you is that you actually know the truth. Put it all out there right away. Then you are forcing them to come and play in your playground rather than letting them define the arena for you. Once you have all your data out there, I would suggest you talk to a lot of reporters, as many as you possibly can. And you go over what happened, what didn't happen. And if you did anything wrong, I would tell those reporters that. So if you did something wrong, don't let them define it for you. You define it. I did this and it was wrong and I'm admitting it. I know that sounds like setting yourself up, but what you're doing is you're stopping the bleeding. If you did something wrong and you hide it, they're going to assume you did all sorts of things that are wrong. If you did something wrong and it was this one thing, it was from this time to this time, I did it this way, and you go into excruciating detail, it comes across as though you're outing yourself and you probably only did that one thing. If you did something wrong, you need to be held to account. It's best to just come right out and say, here's what I did, and go into excruciating detail. If you don't do that, it looks like you're hiding something, and they're just going to assume that you did worse than that and make the story up for you. Do not let people make up your narrative. You make your story up. You get it out there. That's why you release all the information and you do interviews of your story. And if you did something wrong, you identified it up front. Then at least they have to stick to what's the truth. Your worst enemy is that they're going to lie. Your saving grace and the only way you can compete with people who have a lot more reach than you is by defining the facts up front. That's something you can do. While the story's emerging and they don't have all the information and they haven't gelled how they're going to frame you, now's the time. Get all of your data out there, admit anything you did wrong, and do a ton of interviews explaining your story. What you'd like is as many people who are posting your story as possible. Doesn't have to be new. You can literally be redundant and say the exact same thing, but you want a bunch of people saying it so that if something happens to you or nothing happens to you, but people are talking badly about you, you have all the facts out there and you have a bunch of people who aren't attached to you, saying what you're saying. Why? Because they did an interview with you. You want as many interviews as possible going into excruciating detail of what this is and is not, and you want those up as soon as you possibly can. And you want while you're releasing all your information. So the public's going to get your narrative repeated by multiple sources. That makes it hard for the media to spin that because there's already many people saying it. And you have released all of your information, which should back up your narrative. I would suggest you reject interviews by large news agencies and you focus on small news agencies, individual bloggers. The point is that you need people who aren't tied to you to tell this story. So it could be Joe Bob's website. It could be independent something with only 100 followers. Smaller agencies will take the time to listen to your whole story because they need action and they don't have a lot of people coming to them. Bigger ones are going to take your story, chop it up, do a headline, and post it out there. Smaller ones are going to do the whole interview and release the whole thing so you get your whole story out there. Reject the big ones, go for small, release all your information, and get that shit out there right now. That's what I got. I'm available for information. I'm assuming, of course, that you did nothing wrong, that you're a journalist, and that you're on the wrong side of the media angle. I've been there. And even if you did everything legally and even if you were right, it doesn't matter. That's not how things work in America. So, time to be ready to play this game. You're in it now. There is no not playing. You can listen to these tips and have a chance of surviving this on your own terms, or you can see where the system takes you. I'm here for further questions if you want.